Good morning. I want to talk about hindrances to faith. You know, when we grow in faith, you grow in trusting God. That there are certain things that you can do that brings you into a doubt situation. Look at Peter walking onto the water. He's full of faith and confidence in what Jesus said. Jesus told him, "Come," which meant come on the water and walk with me. But there, suddenly, after a while, we don't know how long, but maybe 20, 30 yards, and he begins to doubt. What causes him to doubt? He starts to look, not at the words that Jesus said, but at the problems that surrounded him. The big waves, the fear, the slap in the face of the wet water, the wind driving, the droplets of sea all over him, and he began to think, how is this possible? How can we do this? How can we do this? I had a woman that Jesus filled her tank with petrol supernaturally, and then she doubted it, and it went down. Others also saw the tank fill up on the gauge, the fuel gauge, and then she doubted it, went down right to zero again, and she repented and cried out to God, and it went back up again to full. And she drove that car for 3 weeks on that tank of petrol. That gasoline lasted her 3 weeks. Now, you can gain faith and you can lose it. You can have a miracle, even a healing, and then lose it, you see. Why? Because you're looking at the doctor's reports, because you're looking at what seems to be rational thought, soundness of mind, and faith and the power of God work in another dimension. They come from another side up the mountain and heal your body from another side. They are not medicine. They don't go into your mouth, into your stomach. They come through your spirit being into your body. And that takes your acquisition, your acquiescence rather, your agreement, and even your call on God to have a miracle. God doesn't go where he's not asked, and there is a resistance, you see, for spirits to move into a place where they're not invited. Now it's different with demonic powers because they force their way in, but God's powers don't force their way into your life. Now you can fall into doubt and lose faith by several different techniques. Peter, you know, he was a good man. He gave up everything to follow Jesus, but when he walked on water, he lost faith. You see, that goodness, that commitment did not help him. He needed to overcome fear, and he had to learn that lesson with difficulty. But there are certain techniques in overcoming fear, you see, and overcoming doubt. And one of them is don't confess it. You say, but it's true. Yeah, it doesn't matter. The wind and the wave is big and strong, and certainly they can't support the weight of a human body. But don't look at that. Look at the power of God. Okay? Don't look at the doctor's report. Look at the power of God. Don't look at the question, look at the answer. Don't look at the problem, look at the answer. And to do that, don't open your mouth with negative speaking. Because if you speak doubt, it'll come to your heart. Whatever you speak comes to your heart. You see, spirits can affect your tongue. You can just take on the attitude of your neighbor and start speaking like your neighbor, and you'll end up without any faith, just like your neighbor, because you didn't allow faith to come through your tongue. The tongue and the brain are very much a controlling influence in your life. The Bible tells us about the tongue. It's a small little thing, but it affects our whole life. This is a tip. This is a technique of staying in faith. Every time you see a problem, speak the answer. Don't speak the problem. Now you can admit that the problem is true, but you don't admit that it's the final word. The problem is true, you've got cancer. The answer is not that it's fatal. The answer is that God is healing your body. How do you know that? The Bible tells you. Do you trust the Bible? Well, you better, because nothing else might work, and you might die from your cancer. You see, the radiation treatment may not work. And then what? We have got to be very careful, because, you know, you can love God with all your heart and still die when needlessly. Still die when you don't need to die. You see, that devil is a wily adversary. He's an enemy of life. And he knows how to get people to doubt. You see? But if you'll listen to God, the greater one lives in you. And you don't need to doubt. You see, now listen, if Peter got out of that boat and said, you know, I'm always getting afraid of things like this, so I'll take care as soon as I see there's wind and the waves getting big, I'll rebuke them in my mind. I'll say to them, get lost, I'm not going to listen to you. God wouldn't leave me out there to sink. You see, it's very important. Can mean the difference between life and death of you or your partner or your kids. Very important to overcome fear. Very, very important. You're not allowed to do it. God didn't give you a spirit of fear. God gave you a spirit of power. So move in power, not in fear. If you move in power, not in fear, you'll get it. You'll get it. You'll get the miracle. But if you move in fear, not in faith, I'm afraid you're not going to get it, no matter what good person you are. You could be Mother Teresa, you could be, you know, John the Baptist, you can be anybody, and you're not going to get it unless you believe, unless you overcome that fear, unless you drive out that fear. Resist the devil, and he will flee. Fear is of the devil, not of God. Resist him, and you will flee. Speak life, not death. Don't speak. I mean, we're not here to say that cancer is not real. It's real. It's killing your body, for sure. But there is another set of principles at work also. I am the Lord who heals you. I am Jehovah Rafika, the God who heals you. Forget not these benefits, Psalm 103 says, who heals your diseases. See? Now you say, yes, the cancer is killing me according to the doctors, according to the natural, but the Lord is healing me according to the supernatural and according to the Bible. And I will focus upon the Lord and his word. Now listen, you're not in faith if you don't get out the boat. You're not in faith, a position of faith, if you don't get out the boat. You know the man next to the gate beautiful that Peter healed? He said, rise up and walk. The man said, oh, wow, I can't walk. You see, so Peter grabbed hold of his hand and gave him a big yank. And the man decided to go with it. And when he decided that, strength came to his legs. But you see, why did Peter need to help pull him up? Because he didn't have that strength. You see? And of course, he's been 38 years as a cripple. He's not supposed to suddenly believe he can walk, you see. But he chose to believe what Peter said. And when he chose to do that, Peter had to give him a helping hand to pull him up. But when he chose to do what Peter said, and he went with Peter when Peter started to pull him up, and he didn't pull back and say, I can't walk. He just agreed with what Peter believed. And when he agreed that, strength came to his ankles. You see, if you don't get out of your wheelchair, you're not going to get that strength. Don't think the strength come to you first and then you get out the wheelchair. Sorry, you've got to get out the wheelchair and fall if necessary, 150 times if necessary, and then strength will come to you. The position of faith. You'll get it. Keep going. Keep going. God bless you.